It's Paul Marsh, and I'm delighted to say that I've been joined by Paul Draper, formerly of Manson, who is about to go on tour with his Manson the Hit Show. Paul, thank you so
Hey
much
mate, how
for
you
joining me.
doing?
I'm really, really
Yeah,
good,
how you
thank
doing?
you.
Good.
It's lovely to talk to you. You are going out on tour all the way across the UK, and you are coming to the Portsmouth Wedgwood Rooms on Wednesday, the 25th of March. You're going to be performing all 14 of Manson's top 40 hits. Now, I'm somebody I don't want to I'm not that stalker guy. I'm not going to go and say that I'm a super Manson fan, but I like a lot of Manson tunes. I was even surprised myself how many hits you'd had.
Yeah, it's mad to look back at it now because it's very few and far between that bands even get in the top 40 these days. It's mainly solo artists and really heavily biased towards pop stuff. But yeah, back in the day, I mean, we were on top of the pops at CD UK and TFI Friday, Jules Holland, and I just didn't realize, what we'd achieved really. I mean, that was a lot of hits to get under our belt, and I think we had five top tens, 10 top 20s. It was yeah, a good little achievement for that band, I think.
It is frightening, and like you say, when you look at what's going on in the music industry now, I don't want to diverge too much into this because we could go off on a tangent and start
Oh
talking
yeah.
about other things. But like you say, you were on all of like the mainstream shows, all of the ones for the kids, and all of those bits and pieces. You were there,
Yeah.
and I just don't think that would happen now.
No, it's a very different industry now. It's very much about playing live and streaming. But yeah, I mean, Manson, we weren't like a massively commercial band, but we definitely had one foot in that big Britpop world, it stood the test of time that era of music, which is why I'm still here today. I mean, I've been in the music industry now over 30 years, so. Yeah, still chugging away, still playing their Manson tunes, and it's really enjoyable. I mean, having said that, this is the first time I'll play all the hits together. But yeah, so that'll be a bit of a challenge doing a couple of them. But yeah, I don't know how I'm still here, but I still am.
Well, when you look down that set list, obviously, like you say, there are the ones that you have been playing on your solo shows and other bits and pieces. But when you look down that set list, there's always a tune there that you go, oh, I've got to play that one. And then there's always a tune where you go, yes, I get to play that one. What is
Yeah.
that tune where you go, yes, I get to play that one?
Oh, I think I can only disappoint you is the one that I always enjoy playing. That was our biggest ever selling single off the third album, Little Kicks. And so I always enjoy playing that one, mainly because I can still sing it quite well and it hasn't got all the crazy high notes in that I used to manage to belt out back in the day.
When you were recording those, you didn't really think about performing them in 30 years' time, did you?
Oh God, no. I mean, when we did I Can Only Disappoint You, that was probably about 5 years into the band, and I was amazed then that we we were still going after 5 years. I mean, realistically, back then a lot of them Britpop bands lasted 18 months, 2 years, and then you had the big ones that managed to last through the full gamut of it. But most bands split up after the Britpop era, and a lot of them have got back together. Shed Seven, Suede, split up and got back together. Manson never got back together because I went to pursue a career as a record producer and a solo artist. And so, yeah, I never ever thought I'd still be going and going relatively strong. Just lucky that that Manson fan base, stayed intact. And we've got a whole new generation of kids now, their parents passed down the music that they heard or discovered it through being played on the radio stations. We still get played on radio. So yeah, it's a good cross section of audience, yeah. Don't get the mosh pits that we used to get back in the day. I think everyone's cartilage has gone in their knees since they had, kids.
I would agree with that one 100%. It's funny when you get to a certain age and you decide whether you go to gigs or not, or whether there's anywhere to sit down.
Yeah, yeah, there is that. Yeah, no, luckily this I'm not playing to the sit down venues anymore. Still doing the stand up venues, which is good, because they do shift you into them sit down venues when you get a bit long in the tooth, I have to say.
Well, I guess it also depends what kind of show you're doing. Obviously, maybe if you're doing a bit more of an acoustic show, that would make a little bit of sense. But when you're doing the full band stuff, that's where you want the atmosphere, isn't it?
Yeah, we still yeah, it's still a big rock show, we're still playing them songs in the same way that we played them many years ago. And I do on the tours that I've done up to here played my solo material as well. So everyone goes to the bar there and has a drink and waits for Wide Open Space to come on.
I'm sure that is not true. When you look back at things, I think, and this is only my personal opinion, that Manson didn't really play by the Britpop rule book. I don't know if you feel the same, but did you notice that at the time, or is that something that you notice when you look back?
Yeah, the biggest reason for that is we never ever really put out singles. We always put out EPs, and the
Yes.
EPs had 4 tracks on them. So they weren't our most commercial tracks. They're just tracks that fitted well in an EP. And that damaged us at the time for not being as commercially successful as we could have been. But it gave me as an artist a very longevity to my career, by doing, all them deep cuts as they call them these days.
Yeah, and like you say, again, I know we're not going to go into this, but with the way it is now, with just putting out a single once every 6 weeks or whatever it is, completely different vibe.
Yeah, it's a whole different industry now. But as I say, but because we had a lot of deep cuts on them EPs and we weren't commercial, meant that if you got into Manson, you had to really discover it. You didn't discover it just by having the big singles on radio. I mean, we had a couple of them, there's no
Yeah.
doubt about that. But a lot of people discovered it through album tracks, EP tracks, through the live shows. And so, and then people who really get into it, luckily they've stuck with me over the years. So it's been a long career I've had, which is very satisfying as an artist, I have to say.
Well, you talk about like some of your deeper cuts, but like you say, you did have like a few what you would call the big hits. Do you
Yeah,
look at
we do.
do you look at tracks like Wide Open Space and at the time what they meant to you, and then you look back after 20 odd years and you look back, is it the same or do you look back in a completely different manner?
Well, when you put them tracks out, you never know that they're going to last. And the tracks like that, I never would have imagined in a million years they'd still be playing them on radio 30 years later, but they do. There's a real place for that now. And I know loads of kids who got Britpop playlists on their Spotify and stuff like that. It's like the way Motown survived, or
Yes.
it's very much like that. It's a whole genre in itself, and we did have a few big hits that fell into that genre and still get played on the radio. Stripper Vicar, Wide Open Space, I Can Only Disappoint You, Legacy. And so, yeah, we were very lucky in that respect. We had feet in both camps, the alternative band camp and the pop group side as well.
Talking about like the way you released your music and everything else like that, were there ever pressure from the labels to kind of stand in line and do what you were supposed to do, or were
Oh,
you
yeah.
always allowed to do your own thing?
No, the first 2 Manson albums, we were just allowed to do our own thing. But then I think on the second one, Six, we went so far down the rabbit hole of trying to be a creative alternative band. We were sort of pulled back then for the third album, and we did a more straight ahead commercial album, which I say we had our biggest hit single off that one, I Can Only Disappoint You. So, that was really good. And on this new album I've just done, Manson Retold, we've reinterpreted quite a few of them songs because I didn't like the commercial vibe of them. But that's where I've always been as an artist, always wanted to, do something a little bit different and not completely commercial.
I think when you do something a little bit different and it works, it stands the test of time. I mean, you look at like the
Yeah.
Beatles stuff and Queen stuff and that, it would never last now because they would probably get two or three singles. They wouldn't be commercial success and they would just be dropped. Whereas
Yeah.
you say when you look at it, you go back 30, 40, 50 years on some of that music, it's the classics that stand the test of time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Um, and that's why I think Manson has survived, and as a solo artist now, I can go out and do this tour and play the hits,
Yeah.
is because people have got into a lot of them deep cuts, a lot of them album tracks and stuff. And as a solo artist now, there's none of that commercial pressure on me. The albums that I've done as a solo artist, I've just been able to do what I want again. There's no commercial pressure on it. Um, but it leads me to a position where I can go out and play them Manson hits and be, really happy and really proud of what we achieved, with the singles or the lead tracks off the EPs as they were.
Obviously 2025, we had a massive Britpop resurgence with Oasis coming back and touring, and it got a lot of people looking back 30 years to, the mid 90s and the early noughties. The world has moved on a lot since then. What do you think that we got right in the 90s, and what do you think that, is best left in the 90s?
Are you talking about music or everything?
Everything really, both the music and, Britpop. It's not, when you think about, I was very much a child of the 90s with Britpop and like TFI Friday and all of those, that
Yeah.
laddish Lad Mag, Loaded magazine and all of that. There was something very magical about it. Would it work now? Probably not.
Well, I mean, the biggest difference as an artist is there's not music on TV in the way there was in the 90s. There's no Top of the Pops, there's no CD UK, there's no TFI Friday. The only thing that survived that we played on was Jules Holland, So apart from Jules Holland, there's very little. But, people growing up now in generations younger than me, they don't get their music from TV. It's all online. And my career now is predominantly online and playing gigs. I don't do TV at all these days. If a Jules Holland opportunity come along, I'd do that. But barring that, there's very little. You have Glastonbury coverage once a year, and the rest of it is, Britain's Got Talent, The X Factor. It's all that, sort of homogenized stuff.
Yeah, we were talking earlier. You mentioned it about obviously a lot of the people having the top 10, the top 40 hits right now are your solo artists. What advice would you have for anybody that's in a band right now trying to make it? Obviously, you've seen the glory days, you were a part of that. It is a very different era now that you are still a part of. So, anybody that's coming through in a young band right now, what could you tell them?
It's get yourself on social media, go round and gig, get everyone who comes to your gig getting on social media. I mean, I don't really do TikTok, but that's the hot market now for new bands. And there's ways that you can market yourself by putting little clips up of your music and hammering them home and do a constant feed of letting people get into your music. I mean, I discovered artists through just doom scrolling through Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. I enjoy a bit of that. And it is your artists like Lola Young. I mean, I discovered that track Messy just by random, just I think YouTube I discovered it on. It was like, oh, I love that. And that's on my playlist now. Keep plugging away at your social media. Get yourself on the streaming services, which is very easy to do, and play live. And you still need that big break that you always needed back in the 90s now, but it's possible to do it. But it is a case of do it yourself now. Get out there and build your whole career yourself.
Let's talk about some of your solo stuff. When everything ended, when you decided to call it a day, how did that feel? Did it feel like a weight had been taken off your shoulders, or was it like, well, the pressure's on me now?
No, I definitely remember feeling relieved, a lot of that pressure of, getting them EPs done. I mean, we were constantly touring and recording. I took about 6 months off and then I wanted to be a record producer. So I went into that and I did quite a few projects that were pretty successful. I enjoyed that. And then it was probably about 10 years later after Manson split, I started doing my solo career. And as I say, I'm really fortunate that that Manson fan base has stuck with me. I've had a couple of solo albums so far, and they're both charted in the top 20. And I'm just releasing my third one now, which is a collection of Manson songs with a full um, acoustic band, acoustic bass, acoustic lead guitar, obviously a drum kit and a string quartet. And that's going really well. And there isn't any pressure on me as such that there was when I was on a big major label. I mean, I'm an independent artist now, and I can just do what I want. And it's very enjoyable as opposed to being that pressure cooker of being on a major label.
I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of name dropping now. Who are some of the artists that you produced for that you enjoyed working with the most? I know one of the first names you worked with was Skin from Skunk Anansie, and I just think she is just phenomenal.
Yeah, Skin was the best vocalist I've ever
Oh,
worked with. I mean, she was incredible and probably doesn't use her voice to her full potential being in a rock band. I mean, she was a gospel singer before she became a rock artist. But yeah, that was by far my most enjoyable project that I worked on. And I produced and wrote with Skin. We wrote some songs together and we did it over in Monaco. She was living at the time. So that was just a brilliant time living over in Monte Carlo and writing every day and partying at night. We had a good time, and I'm still good friends with Skin to this day. So that was my favorite and probably most successful project as well. I mean, we had a lot of hits in Italy, and bizarrely, I had my first number one single in Albania. Um, and because Skin was just huge in Europe, we had hits in the Netherlands, France, Germany, that was a very, very successful project and loved doing that.
what was the difference between Manson and Paul Draper when you're writing? And how much, were the other members of Manson involved in the writing period, or was it you and then you brought it to them?
No, me and the guitarist Chad, we did a lot of writing together, but predominantly I wrote on my own for Manson. So moving over to a solo career wasn't that different
No.
writing the songs. The process of sitting there with the guitar and trying to dig something out, pretty similar, a similar process. Obviously a different process recording it because I play most of the instruments on my records now. Apart from drums, which I'm terrible on. But obviously back in the Manson days, I was, you were part of a band, you were part of a unit, a little family where you were recording as a band. So it's the recording process is different, the songwriting's the same.
Um, just to finish up with a couple of questions now. You mentioned earlier about how, once you get into Manson because of some of the deeper cuts, you really, really get in. I've seen it in a couple of interviews, Manson being described as a little bit of a cult band. How does that sit
Yeah.
with you?
Well, I mean that comes from having like being a fan base act. Like I always remember as a kid seeing Iron Maiden would always go in at number one in the charts, but you never saw them on telly. And that was very much the thing with Manson. People always describe it as being the biggest cult band of the 90s. But then I remember bands before that, from a previous generation like XTC, who had similar sort of fan bases, but ultimately, people describe them as underrated or a cult band or should have been massive. I think Manson falls definitely into that category, so I enjoy that. I enjoy that tag.
Last question then. When people walk out of seeing one of your shows with Manson the Hits, what do you hope that they feel?
Pain in their cartilage in their knee because they can't mosh anymore.
I love that. I love that. Well, look, Paul, thank you so much for talking to me. I really do appreciate it. Paul Draper is going to be at the Portsmouth Wedgwood Rooms on Wednesday, the 25th of March, performing Manson the Hits. Paul, I know it's going to be an amazing evening. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Cheers, Marshy. I'll see you next time, mate.